What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Turns out Sony is facing a whole bunch of backlash over this past weekend because they were fudging the numbers somewhat when it comes to the PlayStation Store. And this once again plays into some of the drawbacks that people think about after they see stuff like this happen with the all-digital future. We're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Pokopia, which has gone absolutely insane, completely viral online, and now even Nintendo is selling out of the game. And we have one of the strangest stories that's popped up now that I can remember in quite some time, where an older game was replaced by kind of an even older game, but a reboot, and one I haven't thought about since the early 2000s on the original Xbox. We'll look at all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, going over the world of gaming news, trying to keep you up to date. So even if you don't see a notification, just know there's probably a video here for you to check out. And we're going to start today with 3D Mario. Not an official 3D Mario announcement, but one of a really weird thing that's been going around over the last few days, and I've seen get picked up quite a bit on social media. Most of the time just kind of making fun of it, but some taking it like legitimately seriously. So take a look at this. Now this is apparently Super Mario Titans. New images confirming Mecha Bowser and other. And look, there are so many of these getting posted up from this one account, and most people are calling it for just being AI generated images and still frames. And yeah, that's kind of how I would look at this. I mean, I'd be absolutely shocked if Super Mario Titans ends up being a real thing. Again, it's one account that's sharing many screens, and let's face it, if this was a real thing, don't you think Nintendo would have struck this down completely? Copyright strikes, DMCA takedowns, all of this, if there was a build of a game, even marketing materials, that's going to be massive for them, a new 3D Mario game just being posted online by a random account. So no, I wouldn't expect Super Mario Titans to be a real thing. It probably is AI generated, just see if they can get some attention from it. Also, we previously heard that South of Midnight would be going to the Switch 2 and the PlayStation 5 spring 2026. Now we have the official release date. We can see this over on Gamatsu, saying the PS5 and Switch 2 versions of South of Midnight will launch on March 31st. Publisher Xbox Game Studios and developer Compulsion Games announced. All right, so this is just about a year, almost exactly, from when it came out on the Xbox Series in 2025. There's also the Weaver's Edition you can check out here with all the content, including an official art book, soundtrack, and a comic book, more stuff like that. So just some fun little things to be bundled in with the game itself. This just continues, as we've seen, Microsoft's push for more multi-platform support, even going to other consoles. And while there is a big discussion right now around exclusives and Microsoft, and if they will be returning to that, maybe for the Xbox and PC, and kind of foregoing some of these Switch 2 and PS5 releases, I don't necessarily think that's going to happen. I know it seems weird because they're going to be selling, we assume, a box that'll be $1,000 or more, and you want to just try to funnel people to it. The tried and true method would be exclusives, but Microsoft is just moving completely differently, and maybe they don't care to sell more than 10 or 15 million of these things into the next generation. It's just, that's where they are right now, putting their games as many places they can so they can try to recoup as much money as possible for everything they've spent so far. Oh, and later on today, there will be a Mario Direct, well, a Super Mario Galaxy movie Direct. You can see this is over on Nintendo's official social media account, saying join us on Monday, March 9th, 2 p.m. Pacific for a Nintendo Direct featuring the final trailer for the Super Mario Galaxy movie. And of course, no game information will be included in this presentation. People are already zooming in and taking a look at the image and the poster that's been released, and they're already picking out some characters that I assume would be shown in the final trailer, the last big push before the movie releases at the beginning of April. So I guess tune in later on today to most likely just see a trailer for the movie, and that'll probably just be the Direct. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this backlash that Sony is currently facing, as there was a report that was ongoing, an investigation, if you will, by a certain website that seemed to realize, wow, Sony is showing different prices to different people based on the information they've collected of that person on the PlayStation storefront, on their digital store, say connected to the PlayStation 5. And this has not gone over well, but we'll come back to the all digital future, since, wow, Sony seems to have a lot of control in that kind of situation. So much so that, like, you can see. Now, this is over on psprices.com saying, since November 2025, Sony has been A/B testing prices in the PlayStation Store. Over 3 months, the experiment grew from 50 games in 30 regions to over 150 games in 68 regions, and now includes Sony's own AAA titles. Some have even gone to post on places like Reddit showing that they, in the same household, they saw a certain price versus maybe a spouse that saw another price, and they're putting it side by side. Not a great look there, and the site does say that price differences range from 5% up to 17.6% in terms of price differences. The US and Japan still do not participate, likely due to stricter regulation and higher market sensitivity. And this seems to be something that, yes, has been ongoing for months now. Just to see, I figure what price effects will have on, like, what different pricing will have in terms of effect on different people in terms of, and look, they have a lot of information, let's face it, age, your preferences when it comes to games, like what you're more interested in buying versus others. So maybe they want to show you a certain game that you don't typically play, but they'll mark it down an extra 20% to see if maybe there is a price where you would become interested in that genre or that game. And then conversely, how much money can they get for a certain game? So let's say you're really into shooters and you've never tried Titanfall 2, but maybe for the right price, you check it out. So Sony knows, well, they like shooters already. Instead of this thing being the typical 80% off, I bet you we can make it 40% off and just clear an extra, couple dollars off it. And then they show you that, oh, okay, cool, it's 40% off. Whereas it's supposed to be 80% off. That's kind of the thing right now is, wait a minute, can they show like smaller sales for people who would be more inclined to buy it, and then show steeper discounts to someone who either doesn't have a large digital library or maybe wouldn't have been interested otherwise? And that's the other big thing here. Sony, like many other companies, because this isn't necessarily just something that Sony's doing. People point out that grocery stores do it a lot. You could look at Uber and just other services that you run through apps where they can change things on the fly. In this case for Sony, though, I would see them as, okay, this person who's had an account with us for decades, even at this point, really since we kicked everything off with PlayStation Plus back in the day on the PS3, they're locked in. They have a digital library that is massive. But here's somebody who might be a new customer, and we feel like if we get enough of a digital library to them, that they will then stick to the system. Like, they're more of a sticky customer in Sony's eyes. So they'll show them more and more cheaper games, deeper sales and discounts, versus somebody who is probably not going anywhere because they have 200 some odd digital games on file. It's just the idea of treating customers differently based on maybe their status, their income level, age, anything else really. Again, these companies have a lot of information. This typically wouldn't be something they could control as easily if there was a much heavier physical game presence. But that is, as we mentioned before, going away little by little. And while it seems like maybe some of the newer generation is even realizing themselves the drawbacks of just digital everything, it could be a situation of it's just overwhelming in terms of digital, and eventually Sony just decides, you know what, we're going almost all digital and really pushing the idea of a physical disc drive to the back with something like the PlayStation 6, where it is like truly, truly optional. They don't even show the system with a disc drive. It's digital when it shows up, and then it's like, oh, you can get this little thing that you connect to the back of it, and then it'll kind of work with your PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 games. But here it's just that all digital future puts a lot of control in the hands of the publisher and the platform holder, and this to me is just a prime example of that actually being utilized, to where prices can be changed on the fly to see what you're willing to pay any given day at any time. Maybe if it's raining out or something. I mean, it really can get down to that specific time period. Well, they're not going anywhere. It's raining, so it's $2 more today. But let me know what you guys think about this one, because this certainly got a lot of discussion online with Sony trying out dynamic pricing. Next up, let's talk about Pokopia, which has absolutely taken the internet by storm. I figured this game would do well because it's Pokemon, but this seems like it's going to another level, as in it's pulling in people who maybe aren't even as into Pokemon as others coming over from like the typical Pokemon fandom, as this seems like people who would be in Animal Crossing are checking this out. Even some who are just looking for I don't want to say a less stressful game, because it can be kind of stressful, all the stuff happening, but yeah, I guess what you'd deem a cozy game. But now we're starting to see this title sell out. I mean, at many different retailers online or in store. Even to the point now where if you go on Nintendo's website, you can see choose physical instead of digital. It's sold out. Like Nintendo's own website, they don't have copies of Pokopia. Keep in mind, this is a game key card. This is another situation where people, I think the right game comes along and they go, you know what? I do want this game, so I'm just going to go ahead and get the game key card. I mean, that seems to be the case. In fact, some were even looking at Walmart Canada, saying due to massive demand, we've sold through our initial allotment of Pokemon Pokopia. As a result, we've now opened pre-orders for Wave 2 of Pokemon Pokopia on Switch 2. Yeah, pre-orders after the game has come out. We're going to Wave 2 now. Walmart Canada. That's something that... Now, I did wonder, okay, were there just not many in stock necessarily? This clearly, to me, has caught even Nintendo off guard to where they don't have any in stock on their website. We have some initial or early, I'd say, sales impressions from Christopher Dring saying Pokemon Pokopia was seriously undersupplied at UK retail. Its launch physical sales are not even half of what Legends ZA did. And I will say, I could see Nintendo looking at that and going, okay, maybe not ZA numbers is what we're going to ship initially. We'll do less of an allotment and see what happens. And boom, caught off guard completely. Now we will see Japan sales later on this week. I do think those are going to be pretty large. But now I'm thinking, okay, this might actually be a supply constrained situation when it comes to physical copies of Pokopia, which does make me wonder about the digital side because it's already a game key card. And I'm sure there are people who are thinking, I'm going to be playing this game a lot going forward, but it might be a situation of I'll jump into this game and then jump out when Yoshi maybe or something comes out, another Switch 2 game, big title. But then I'll also come back to it. So rather than have to change the cartridges out all the time, I'll just leave it like loaded at all times on my Switch 2. So that's also a possibility. And then it would come back to whenever Nintendo is able to report, whether that's early on, because Nintendo might be ready to just talk about numbers sooner rather than later, not necessarily wait until the first half of May when they'll do their investors report that would actually include Pokopia. They might just put out a press release like they've done with other Pokemon games and just say some massive number and get investors all excited again because, oh, the Switch 2 is also selling, which was a concern. A big game needs to materialize that can sell these systems. And then here comes Pokopia, which seems like it is that game. And I will tell you this, if it really is catching the Animal Crossing crowd's attention, I mean, look out. I said it in a video over the weekend for Pokopia. This could end up being like one of the big Pokemon games, as in it could end up being the best selling one over time. It's not going to happen overnight, but this is early on in the Switch 2's life. This could be a game that sells for years and years into the future. It's possible. We've seen how evergreen some of these Nintendo games are. This one, if it does fall in line with Animal Crossing, which sold just about 50 million copies, I'm just saying it's possible, keep an eye on this one. But yeah, Pokopia seems like it's very, very popular. Surprised me. And again, I did a video over the weekend to check that out because I was flat out wrong on the sales potential or even just the overall quality of this game. It's pretty good. Next up, let's talk about one of the strangest stories I've seen pop up in a long time. And it harkens back, for me anyway, to the original Xbox days with some of my friends for a certain title, which we can see this over on VGC. I mean, they say the studio behind Robocop Rogue City seemingly briefly replaced the Steam version with an early build of an unannounced Hunter the Reckoning game by accident. And I remember playing Hunter the Reckoning Gathering. This was back on the original Xbox, and it was early 2000s. And it was sort of even early on that, a meme game to us. We were kind of joking about it, and I think people did like the game, but it was kind of that joke game for us. We would play it here and there, and it was just a fun game we'd play at like LAN parties and stuff. Not necessarily to be taken serious, not like how we took Halo 1 seriously when all the Xboxes got linked up. This was a nice game where people could sit down, plug in all 4 controllers, and just run around and just blast enemies in like this isometric view. But it's always stuck with me. So whenever I would see it pop up on like retro stores, whether in store or on GameStop's retro site or something, I'm like, oh, okay, that's funny. So I would have never guessed that Robocop would be replaced very briefly by a new version of this game. And as mentioned here, it was spotted by user Silent with the update Robocop.exe executable replaced with Hunter Wins 64 Shipping.exe. In fact, they managed to capture some screenshots that they showed on their X account here. And I don't know. Is this gonna be? Are we gonna get a new Hunter the Reckoning game? Is this one that was canceled already and they accidentally hit ship or send or update with Robocop? This would be from Teon. And look, Nacons, they're going through a lot of stuff right now. So who knows what's happening here? Super random stuff, though. I mean, really, the fact that they were even able to kind of boot it up and get into an early build of this game at least shows that there was development happening here, and it wasn't just concept art or just broken versions of the game. There's at least something. So maybe we should keep an eye out, and whenever we get something from Nacon, as they had to push some of their events, even that they were going to have back a bit because they're facing insolvency and trying to figure that out, maybe they're ready to talk about a new Hunter the Reckoning game, which I know is also stuff outside of video games, but that was the first time I've ever been introduced to that franchise at all. Random original Xbox stuff during a LAN party, 4 of us just kind of running around and laughing, which, yeah, that's how a lot of games or franchises were introduced back then. Random LAN party, hanging out with friends. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a situation that's currently unfolding around Gang of Dragons, which was a game that we had unveiled to us last year. And this is coming from the Nagoshi Studios, who's led by the original creator of Yakuza. They left Sega and went out on their own to form a new studio, and they were backed by NetEase, who went back and forth with Tencent when it came to who was going to fund Nagoshi Studios, and it turns out NetEase ended up winning out. However, now it appears they're backing away from the deal, and there is serious concern around Gang of Dragons just being canceled at this point and the studio being dissolved. So we can see this. Now, this is over on Bloomberg, who broke the story saying NetEase will cut off funding to the studio led by Yakuza franchise creator Toshihiro Nagoshi. Employees of Nagoshi Studio were told of the decision on Friday, according to people familiar with the situation. And a NetEase spokesperson confirmed to Bloomberg it will stop financing the studio from May. And so this decision, according to Bloomberg, was reached because, well, they still have quite a bit to do, up to the tune of $44.4 million that needs to be invested to get this project to the finish line and shipped. And it seems like NetEase is kind of backing away from a lot of their gaming investments. And this is just another one, I guess, that they're deciding to part ways with at this time. However, NetEase, they at least say that they are open to negotiating and maybe someone else comes in and wants to pick up the tab on this. But it seems like NetEase wants to be able to have Nagoshi Studio buy their way out of the NetEase contract, so it might even cost more money than that. So really it comes down to who out there wants to take the risk on this. And maybe Sony? I'm just thinking of like Yakuza kind of being tied to the Sony, I mean, just the Sony brand in general. Would Sony come in and do that? I don't know, because everyone seems like they're becoming more and more risk off right now. And clearly this contract was made, this agreement was made when there was more interest in investing in brand new startup studios. And we're seeing less and less of that now. And in fact, we're seeing more of these studios part ways and pull back a bit. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. It's kind of a shame that they even were able to show Gang of Dragons, because there's probably plenty of people who are very excited about the prospect of it. And who knows if it's going to end up even coming out at this time. So I'll keep an eye on this to see if anyone comes in and maybe is able to save Nagoshi Studios and have Gang of Dragons get to the finish line. Apparently it'll just cost about another $50 million. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, will a new 3D Mario game release on Switch 2 this year? 66% of people say no, 34% of people say yes. So it's tough, because I do know Nintendo can do that thing where they'll announce a big title and, oh yeah, it's coming out this holiday. It could be a 3D Mario game. They announce it and then it's out in 5 months. They can do that. And it would make sense to do that now, because as much as people are looking at the Zelda 40th anniversary and they're like, Nintendo didn't do anything for it. Well, they probably won't announce anything for it until later this year, after they've gotten past the Super Mario Galaxy movie, which they clearly have a lot of focus on right now. But the thing is, a big 3D Mario game would make sense with that Mario movie happening here in a month or so, to have that set up for the holiday season, where they can kind of ride off of what will probably be a lot of interest and hype around the Mario franchise, especially since we're kind of expecting this movie to do more than $1 billion at the box office. Yeah, it's probably going to translate over to people going, hey, I would like to check out a new Mario game. Oh, look, here's this new 3D Mario game. I'll pick up the Switch 2 as well. It all just kind of works in tandem. So it makes a lot of business sense. I guess it just comes down to if Nintendo really does have a 3D Mario game ready to go, set up for holiday 2026. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Anto, who says, Spawnwave clearly did not get enough sleep last night if he thinks a PS5 game came out in 2001. It's off by like 20 years. That's margin of error stuff, really, if you think about it. I mean, look, we all, most of us, time traveled this weekend anyway. You like blinked and boom, we jumped ahead an hour. So 20 hours, an hour, 2001, 2021, it's all basically the same. Although, can you imagine going back to 2001 with Kenna Bridge of Spirits, which was discussing in that video, and show them what games are going to look like 2 decades from then, when we're seeing Final Fantasy X and like, wow, games will never look better than this. And then you come back with a game that looks close just about to the cutscene quality that we're seeing from Final Fantasy X. It's those are the kind of jumps that we've talked about in the past that we don't see anymore, although that is like 2 decades of jumps, but generational leaps. Still, though, that's a bit of a difference there. Yes, 2001 didn't get that PS5 game, unfortunately, released. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave and want to remind me that Kenna didn't come out in 2001, I'll leave that up in a box here. Or maybe you want to check out my Pokopia video where I did talk about how, yeah, I was a bit off on that one. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.